Hi everyone, I'm Claire Liu and I'm the CEO of Know Your Team. We make software that helps you avoid becoming a bad boss, and I have the absolute privilege today to welcome today on the Heartbeat an incredible boss. So I have Ritu Bhargava, who is the SVP of Engineering at Salesforce, an organization that I'm sure everyone who's listening knows of. They have over 29,000 employees, and I actually learned that Ritu's team alone has over, I believe, 200 people, and so which is larger, I think, than many of our companies in some ways. And so I happened to meet Ritu. We both sat on a panel earlier this year here in San Francisco, and once we got to chatting, I realized I had to have her on the podcast. So an absolute honor to have you here today, Ritu. And total aside, I learned that you were on the U.S. cricket team. I just feel like I really need to mention this to everyone. It's
That's true.
it is true. I learned that the U.S. cricket tournament is going on right now in World Cup. So if you weren't impressive enough, we have that to add to the list. But I'm not here to talk about cricket today, unfortunately. The thing I wanted to ask you, Ritu, was this one question that I've been asking leaders who I respect and admire. And here we go. You ready?
Okay, let's do this.
So the question that I've got for you is, what's one thing, or it could be several things, that you wish you would have learned earlier as a leader?
Wow. Okay, and just for the record, this is totally new. Like, this is a surprise question.
Yeah, exactly. You did not have a heads up.
Yep.
I am giving it
Yep.
to you on the fly. Yep. We get
Yep.
the real answer
Yep.
here.
Yeah. Well, I can try it. So, I think there have been a lot of learnings around, the 20 years that I've been working. Each of them have come at a time when I was ready to either take on a project, or it was just something that gave me big butterflies in my stomach. And it wasn't in that moment, but it happened when either I failed or I failed miserably. So, and so I would say the biggest thing so far is when to say no. Um,
Tell me
and
more.
so I
Yeah.
wish I learned that before because, you want to impress and you want to say yes to everything and you want to overcommit and perhaps even over deliver. And usually I've just learned that if I say no more, I can focus on fewer things and do them really well.
Yes.
And when I do that, I have found that people will, for example, you're on a project and people are like, I want this and this and this. And usually as leaders, we get overwhelmed by the 10 requirements of a big project. And then I've learned that if I said no to 5 things, and you have to be careful, right? You can't say no to everything, but what are those
Sure.
things that, you can live without? Or perhaps will not kill you. And so when I said no to those things, it helped me in focusing on things that I could spend more time on and do a really good job. And so if you were to look at literally every year or every 2 years, I've got a big project, be it at Oracle or Salesforce, which was very customer facing, a big product launch, a big Dreamforce launch. And if you were to go and ask what was that one thing that I delivered, people would know, okay, this is the year that Ritu did this, or this was the year and that was because I said no to like 5 other things.
That's so interesting. I'm I find this actually to be a really, really sharp insight, even though it sounds obvious on the surface, right? Oh yeah, say no more than you say yeah. It's like, oh, right. I feel like, for many of us as leaders, we're like, oh, duh. Yet do we do that in practice? Oh my gosh, it's really hard to do. And what I really loved of what you shared is at the end here of thinking about, the thing, like the one thing that you are really proud of, and that's actually the culmination of not sort of taking on too much, but actually saying no to a lot of things. Is there a specific project that comes to mind or a year, Ritu, where you were like, I finally sort of did it right, or I finally kind of like gave myself, what is it too? This is a few questions here.
Yeah.
Like, is it courage
Yeah.
to yourself? Like, how is it also that you sort of figure out how to put a foot down and say no?
Right. And I think a lot of it also comes from the credibility or the work that you have done leading on to when you can start saying no. Because early on in my career, I didn't have that leverage or the courage or like people to just say, who are you to say no to me, you know? And starting on, you have to serve the time. You have to absolutely serve the time. You have to put in the hard work. I have personally, like no one looks at you at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. when you're perhaps the only person working, or like at the 7 a.m.s and the 9 p.m.s that I've been the first person or last person to come and leave office. You know, so in that moment, no one gets that. But you know, what you have to understand is you've served that time, then you have to be very aware of, okay, now is the time when I can risk it. I can have the courage to put some no's out there and not like either spoil my reputation or the things I'm known for or my credibility.
Right.
You know, and so it depends. On some people, it comes early in your career. Some people, it comes later. And it's fine to know what is that time. And sometimes it doesn't come, and that's fine too. But, you know, you got to know, okay, you know what, I don't have that credibility, but maybe the fact that I say no will get me there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really interesting your observation that ability and that courage, one, it builds up over time. It happens at different times for different people. And then this idea that there has to be some level of credibility that comes with it. And I just appreciate your honesty around that, right? So it's not just like, oh, just start saying no to everything willy-nilly, or when you haven't been delivering, it's like, well, you know, your work product has to be there. One thing I am curious maybe to challenge you on, or what I'd sort of love to sort of poke at and take a devil's advocate point of view is, do you think it's required to sort of have the sort of the stripes of the late hours, putting in the work, so to speak? Like, do you think that could backfire in some ways too? Because then at what point, like, you know, could your boss be taking advantage of you because you're trying too hard to establish that credibility? I'm curious what you think about that. Like, is there a little bit more nuance than just like, you must serve the time?
No. So when I say serve the time, it's more about what is your output and value add. And I know these are overloaded terms, but at the end of the day, it's if I can deliver value in 2 hours, okay, and or 6 hours or 5 hours or 15 hours, frankly, to me as a leader, and also there have been times where, frankly, as I've grown higher and higher, sometimes the value that I add is in that moment and not at like the 10 hours that I've put into something.
Yes.
Right. And so the reason why I said hours is sometimes your job just gets more complicated, and sometimes you just don't get it, right? Yeah. No one. I personally value attitude and hard work in terms of just value add more than just pure capability. Yes. And I've seen a lot of people being very capable, but not wanting to put either themselves out there, or to take a stance, or to put the hours, whatever it takes, right? And if you're super smart, fine, you'll get it in 2 hours. I'm not saying no to it. And, you know, and people like me who are not perhaps the smartest would be like, you know, it'll take me 6 hours or 8 hours, or I'll have to do some homework when no one else is watching, right? Just to be more ready for the next day, whatever it takes.
Right.
And so going back to what you asked earlier is, last year I had a big year where there were some problems in the product that were going on, and my boss was like, hey, I want you to help me with fixing this problem, and without giving too much detail, right?
Yes.
And it was not a fun project. It was not a fun project.
What do you mean by why wasn't it fun? I'm curious. What do you mean by that?
You know, for an engineering organization, or an engineer or an engineering leader, fun is usually around building a new product.
Yes.
Building a technology.
That's the most fun.
Or working on something that you can showcase after it's done to say, you know what, this is something I did, or I could, you know, I can tell my friends about it, or I can learn something, you know, like a new language or whatever out of it. This project was grunt work of just fixing some problem that existed. It was nothing new, nothing shiny. No one would even know that it was done, because you know how when quality is not there is when you notice it, and when it's there, it's just there.
Yes, I love that.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So it was not fun work, but it required me, and I talk of myself as a cat herder, and it required me to kind of just, do the herding
Do the
day in and
herding.
day out. And if you ask
Yes.
me, what did I really do? I worked 16-hour days cat herding. And
Sorry, I don't mean to
I
laugh, but
did.
it's like,
Yeah, no, it's
no,
fun.
that's not fun.
It's fun.
That's not fun. Yeah.
It was not. But
Yeah.
now it's funny. But what happened is after 6 months, we fixed the problem and customers started, were like, you know what? They are, it was like a big win. Till like the CEO level where I went into the CEO's office and I got to present what we did. And he was like, wow, I'm not saying that I was the only person who was involved. There were like hundreds of engineers and other
Of
leaders
course.
involved in it. But I was the face of it who was also, when others were putting in time, I was putting in time, and they're putting in energy and ideas, I was doing that. And then, so that lasted, let's say, 6 months. Then after 2 months, my boss comes and tells me, I want you to do another of those projects. There's this other product that is broken, and you did such an amazing job on that project and that product. I want you to fix this. And I was like, you know what? No, I won't. I
Wow.
said, no, I won't. I was
Yep.
like, right now, there's an opportunity to do A, and there's an opportunity to fix. For the past year and a half, and there was another project before that that I had done that was similar. I said, I just got out of that project, grunt work. You know what? I would like to do something else. I would like
Yes.
to, and that's where I was like, I served the time, I delivered, and this is,
Yes.
and it was a big risk. I had to prepare. I can tell you, I have a personal coach, and I'll keep on talking about this personal coach. And literally at some level of management, all you get with your manager is 15 minutes a week,
Right.
right? Between like, hi, hello, bye, how are you, how's your day? And,
Yes.
he's 5 minutes late, you're having to leave 5 minutes early, 15 minutes is all you have, right? And in 15 minutes, I had to pitch why I would say no to A and why I could do B better than anyone else. And it was a hard one. And, it's like the whole concept of crucial conversation.
I was about to say, how did you approach this? Like, please do share for everyone who's listening. Everyone's sort of, I'm sure, perking their ears up, going, wait, how did she have this conversation? I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is every hard meeting that you go into. For me, I always practice about what would success of that meeting look like for me,
Yes.
right? And so at the end of 20 minutes or 15 minutes or at the end of this podcast, what is success for me? Right? And it could vary from time to time. It could just be like, you know what? For example, I could be very nervous about a meeting just for showing up and not like breaking down and
Right.
being emotional about a topic could be success,
Yep. Totally.
right?
Right.
Or it could be success where there are high stakes of saying, the outcome of this meeting is that he should at least start thinking about why I deserve that project. Right? And you have to be realistic about
Yeah.
not that you should say yes, because knowing if the stakes are high, you can't just tell your boss that, hey, I don't want to do this. But you have to learn that some of these might be like 3 or 4 conversations off.
Right.
But the success of that first meeting for me was he should at least not say no. Right?
I love that. So a very pragmatic, sort of very tuned in definition of success
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so if you know, right, and so with my coach, actually, I practiced and I wrote down my talking points. He won't
Love
help
it.
me with that. I wrote down my talking points, which were not more than 10 minutes, and assuming 5 minutes is when my boss will talk, right? So 5 minutes of talking points is what you get. And to know in that moment, of course, to be able to pivot, but at the end of it, just still knowing what do I want to get out of it. And so that's been like a theme across every single meeting, which is high stakes, a crucial conversation. If whoever has not read that book should, I absolutely believe it's called Crucial Conversations.
Oh my God, it's so funny you mentioned that, Ritu. It is literally one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
Yep. It's indispensable, the framework that
Yeah.
they share. Yep.
Yep. And then you tie it with like my absolute favorite author is Simon Sinek. You absolutely tie it with start with a why. And so if you're leading with a why and you're going into a crucial conversation and you know what you want out of it as to what success looks like at the end of that crucial conversation, I think that's pretty much what has helped me.
I
The
love,
packaging, the packaging.
absolutely. I think something that's resonating with me as I was listening was very much the simplicity of it, right? And this idea that, not to get a little meta here, but even in the conversation, to say no, you're saying no to a lot of things of sort of what you're considering in your set of things to consider. It's like, okay, two things, right? It's the definition of success and the real why that's driving this. And also then drum roll, I have to ask, how did your boss respond? How did the conversation go?
So it was, so I had practiced and I had anticipated what he would go after. And so even before he went after that, I drew it on the board, which was like, I can share it actually, because I thought he would say, you know what, you do not have the skill set or you do not have the experience to do that job.
Interesting.
Right? And that job, and to be really honest, that job required my scope to be 3 times of what it was. Right? So I was, in that moment, I was not just asking for a job. Perhaps I was also asking for a promotion, right?
Because, yep.
Your responsibility comes, but I was not really worried about the promotion. My why was not the promotion.
Right.
Right? My why was yes, it was not, because if you're going after just like a promotion without the why, it kind of never works out. And so the why that I was going after was, I'm going to help you solve this problem. And I drew why I was the best person to help him succeed. And
amazing.
That no one can say no to. If I came to you, hey Claire, let me help you. Right? Let me help you. And I'm not being dishonest that it helps me too. Right? And then it's a partnership beyond that. It changed the conversation for him. Right. And he said, you know what? Let me think about it. 3 meetings after that, I did get that job.
Huh. Incredible, Ritu. My God. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this is taking notes. I know I am, at least mentally. I completely...
Before that, I do want to underline one thing, is that it was very hard. It was very hard. As in, I'm saying that, yes, it was just like a linear, success curve.
It just didn't work like that, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Gosh, no.
There were a lot of sleepless nights for the 10-minute conversation. I can personally tell you I would have prepared at least 20 hours.
For a 10-minute conversation, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, I think to your point, the stakes are high because the perception and this is what I'm so enjoying about our conversation, that saying no is just so much more complex than just the 2 letters. It's the dynamic that you have with the person you're saying no to. It's understanding, all the potential outcomes and fallout and weird unintended consequences that happen. It's understanding even, your boss or the person you're saying no to, their sort of their temperament, like how people who are in those positions usually aren't said no to very often. So navigating that is difficult, and I think it's tremendous that you spent the time and did the diligence to have that conversation. But clearly it worked out. So
and it works out. I could argue it works out at every level. So here is another example, right? I was asked to come to that panel that you and I were part of.
Yes,
and I was like, I don't want to do this. It's like time consuming.
Totally.
And then there were like 5 other requests that I got. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to say no to these and yes to this. And it's okay. And I'm going to take a chance. And sometimes you just need to go with your gut and look at, you may not have conclusive evidence of what you want to say yes and no to. But you also, that's where I like to add the aspect of your gut check, of just going with it. And you know what? At that moment, what has also helped me is, what is the worst that can happen?
Absolutely.
What is the worst that can happen? I was like, fine, I'm going to say yes to this panel. What is the worst that can happen? My 2 hours are going to get wasted.
Right.
Okay. Fine. In the grand scheme of things, what is the least that I can get out of this? I'll meet like maybe one person. And see, I met more than one person.
Yes.
You among them. And then you asked me that we should do this podcast. And I was like, you know what? Sure. Again, what is the worst that can happen?
Right. So appreciate that. I think, Ritu, one thing that actually not some, I would say a lot of leaders, especially emerging leaders and new managers, will often approach me and tell me is how difficult it is for them to say no to begin with. And, you've talked about sort of using your gut. You've talked about, having a why and sort of, having a clear objective. But for the person who feels like they don't have that leverage, for the person who loves to please, what advice do you have for them for sort of recentering and figuring out and putting, your foot down for saying no? What would you say to someone who's like, Ritu, I just have a really hard time saying no? Like, what words do you have for me?
I would say that a lot of no's are preceded by a lot of yes ands. So you have, again, I'll keep on going to that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, my boss, there are like 1,000 yes and, but the and there could be a no built in.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So for example, if you said, yes, sure, or I could say, hey, I won't do this podcast.
Yep.
Okay? Or I could say, yes, I will do this podcast. And, suppose I wanted a favor out of you, or I wanted something out of this, or, it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
I said, yes, and you will actually have to smile a lot. I don't know, I'm just making this up, but,
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Or, do you want to do this? I'll say, yes, and it's like, it's kind of if you build with what you're trying to say no to. I know it's a little complex here, but kind of making the no a yes for you as to why it could be a yes for you.
Making the no a yes for you. I love that.
All right. And so what is that thing? Like, for example, other examples not related to work. I hate a lot of chores, right? We all hate chores. And we don't like a lot of things that we do on weekends that are just like boring stuff, or like laundry or groceries, whatever it is. Every time there's something, and even at work actually, when I have to do something like that, I always look for, actually if I went to the grocery store, I could get my favorite chocolate. Or if I went and did my laundry, I could perhaps, listen to this podcast I've been meaning to listen to while I'm doing laundry. Or that little thing that would totally like a candy or a star, a gold star that you get for a little like incentive that you built in your no.
Making the no a yes for you. I mean, hey, chocolate does that for me every single time. Let's be real. So can't go wrong with that. Ritu, I want to be respectful of your time here, but I've been dying to ask a question, or just sort of jumping here, just based off your extensive experience, because I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, you've been at Salesforce for 7 or so years, right? And have risen to this, immense leadership position. And one of the things, and we sort of touched a little bit about this, on the panel, but what would you sort of attribute to the things that you've done well in sort of navigating the your career development? And then are there other things where you're like, I don't know if I would have done that now that I know? Or, just curious what you think is sort of attributed to your personal leadership success.
There are a couple of things, but as I guess you grow more in your career, people start recognizing you for those things. One is I do not promise anything that I cannot follow through on. So once I talk to them, even if it is a little thing, they'll be like, hey, by the way, what about that little pass for this concert? Or it could be like, what about, can you send an email to that person for me? Little things add up, right? Yep. And you get to, people start knowing that, she follows through. Even if someone it's kind of hard though, because how many people do you meet in a day? And literally, as you grow higher, there's so many favors that people keep on asking you. But, and all at that point saying, you know what? No, I cannot. Sorry. Okay. And so that's one aspect of it. And the other is hard work. I absolutely cannot, for me, there's just no substitute for it. There is absolutely homework, hard work is just, I cannot even tell you how it's just my thing. Because I know if I put in the effort and the right intention and just, to make it possible, even if I fail, it does not matter. Like even if the outcome of it is not like success for others, it's like, again, going back to defining that success for me.
Yes.
Right. So the outcome then stops impacting me, because for me, having put in my 150% to it was success for me.
Right.
Right. And then finally, I would just say that, at some point you do get lucky of being at the right place at the right time. And just recognizing that when you are there, when to step on the gas and just go for it, and when to, say, what, at this point, I just need to wait and watch, and it's okay.
I dig that so much. It's, I think, a real sort of, I don't know, ability to be in tune with just, how things are going, and that they're, the dice isn't going to always roll in your favor, and that, dice are involved. Like luck is a part of the journey in becoming a capable leader. One thing that I've actually been thinking about recently is actually how much luck plays even in the teammates that you are surrounded by, which influences your ability to be a successful leader. If you inherit a team, for example, and get unlucky and, there's some people you really clash with, that is so much harder than getting pretty lucky. I mean, I feel like luck is actually really involved in hiring. Like when I think of the people that I've hired, I'm like, oh, no, we did a good job recruiting, but there's a bit of luck there, right? Like,
Right.
And
on that one, though, I would say there's one thing that I rely on heavily across the board is what I called as org IQ. So it's not just EQ.
Please. Okay.
It's not just emotional quotient, but it's like org IQ. Org IQ being the ability to read a room, the ability to read your interview panel, the ability to read your manager, the ability to read your peers, the non-verbal cues.
Right.
Just, being like a little bit in tune with how do you know what the temperature of the room is right now, and working with it. How do you, and you have to really be aware of, your interview panel. Yeah, I'm walking into this interview panel. There's this guy or this girl who is just like, had this off comment, and, you don't want to read too much into it, but, being tuned to those things has helped me a lot, especially as you go higher. There are a lot of meetings you'll go into and a lot of things that do not get said.
But there's a lot happening in
That's
those
exactly the point.
Interactions. Exactly. I think it is one of the most overlooked aspects of leadership is, there's actually a lot, that focuses on, as you were saying, sort of the emotional ability to sort of gauge the people around you. But I think the interplay of dynamics, the organizational dynamics, the dynamics between people, that's hard. It's hard when we don't pay enough time and attention to it.
Right. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people who want to be like from senior manager to director, that's a big jump. From director, senior director to VP especially. A lot of people do not understand how important it is to be in tune with what is urgent, because no one will tell you beyond a point as to what's important. No one will tell you what's on fire. No one will tell you as an executive or as a senior leader, you need to focus on this. You need to know, and you need to be, you need to be ahead of it to kind of let you be that leader. Because no one is telling me anymore.
I totally agree.
Need to do this or that, right?
Yeah.
And so,
So my truly last question here, just because you said something so interesting, and I'm like, I have to ask you this. So how do you do that, right? Like, how do you sort of get ahead? How do you take that temperature? How do you sort of fill in the gaps and give answers before the questions are even asked?
Yeah. So here is something that happened to me 10 days ago. Okay. And it's an example. So if you have the time, I'll tell you the story.
We have got the time.
Okay. So people know there was a big Salesforce outage that happened, and it was a service disruption. And there's obviously all the documentation and everything is there. It's, so I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I had taken that week off, and because I hadn't had time to just, I had list of literally 200 things that I needed to get done personally. You know, build a truss, call the electrician for this. It's just like things you never get to, right?
Totally.
And I had taken the time to just focus on myself. I
That's
was calling it
great.
my sanity week,
I love that. Yeah.
right? And suddenly it was, this happened on Friday, Saturday comes, Sunday comes, and for the life of me, I just couldn't be home. I just couldn't be home. And I cancel my PTO and I show up to work. And my boss is like, why did you come into work? You were on PTO. You should be off. I said, I think you need me right now. And he did not ask me. No one asked me. No one asked me, right? And it turned out to be the best decision I made. And this is as real as it gets. A week later, last Friday, so my boss and us and a lot of executives, a lot of, engineering teams were working around the clock, done most of it, figured out. On Friday, 5 p.m., he did not call me. We had not met. It's like parallel play. We were in parallel calls, he going and fighting here, me doing the firefighting here, my other peers doing firefighting there, right? No communication, like zero communication between my boss and me. On Friday evening, I walk up to his desk and he looks at me and he says, hi. I was like, I think we should hug. and he was like, that would be perfect.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I gave him a hug, and this is like unprecedented. I've never hugged a boss. Right? And he was like, oh my God, this has been like a brutal 10 days. And he had like some personal issues, some professional issues, all like perfect storm going on in his life. And it just changed. It's always, there have been such defining moments, but this was like a whole different level of defining moment with my boss, where I just knew that he needed me. And I was, and most days what I did was literally, I'm an SVP, right? I go in, I don't have any direct impact of what is going on. All I did was I ordered lunch for the team that was working and just showed up for lunch every day and just talked to them and just calmed them down every single day.
Yep.
And that was all I was doing. And you'd think that, why did she not go on her PTO for this? And this week, I cannot tell you, people are like, oh my God, that was the best thing you did for us, because we had no clue about what was going on.
Right.
We were like trying, we hadn't eaten forever. We all were working. And you were just there off, or at some point, I offered my peer, you need these engineers. I have these 5 engineers who know this, and this. He's like, how did you know that I need help on this, and this language? And I was like, I know the problem. I'm just offering help. And he took me up on that.
Wow. Incredible, Ritu. It's, what a story. And it's also amazing that this happened 10 days ago, right? So very fresh. What I was hearing when you were sharing was just this power of attention, right? That you're applying, like in intense attention to people, needs, and emotions, like energy level, right? Understanding, and so attention, and then the a second part, which is going to sound really cliche, but an enormous amount of empathy. So understanding, gosh, okay, for my boss, like he's going through A, B, and C, like I can't imagine what is it that I can do. Or if I'm, for the engineers on the team and they've been working around the clock, okay, what would that feel like, and what can I do in my role? So attention and empathy just playing such a big part in your ability to get out ahead and solve those problems before someone even asks you to solve them.
Yeah. And more, I think managers and leaders need to understand that less and less is going to explicitly will be asked of them. And so, as a true leader, the anticipation and just caring enough to, anticipate is a big deal. And, it's like Salesforce is a absolute great company to work for, but this is when they needed me.
Right.
They don't pay me the mega bucks to just like, I can take time off whenever I want, but this is when they needed me.
Sure.
Right. And every leader, be it a manager, senior manager, director, knows instinctively when they're needed.
Right, the moment of crisis. Yeah.
Yes, or if it's not even crisis. And they were like managers in my team. I have 30 managers reporting into my organization, and I was like, hey, I need a person to help me. The 5 people who raised their hand, only one of them did not ask what was the help needed. He was just like, I will help. I will help, right? And because at that time, no one knew what help was required.
Right.
You're an engineering manager. You should be able to jump on, it was not like totally out of, like totally rocket science that I was asking him to work on.
Sure.
And you know what? That guy he does not know this, but he is priceless to me now.
There you go.
Priceless to me.
I'm just so, I don't even know what the right word is, marinating, I guess, in all the wisdom that you have shared with me, Ritu, and for everyone who's listening and watching. It's been completely invaluable. Thank you so much for sharing everything from how and why someone should say no to being a leader who anticipates and pays attention and solve those problems before people even ask. So thank you so much. It's truly been, inspirational to talk to you. And we appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much, Claire. Pleasure.